One of my favorite sites that students can use to create online electronic portfolios is Weebly for Education. As an educator, you are able to have up to 40 sites that are free for students to use to create their portfolio. And one of the things I love about it the most is we have some security features that are already built in here, which will protect student privacy. So let's take a look at it. Now, if you want to create an account, you simply go to the Get Started here, enter the information. However, I already have an account, so I'm going to log in now. Once you've logged in, you are able to add a site. I have two here. One is my class websites, and then this is a more personal one that I use to get the EdTech TOSA position. You're also able to create individual student sites in this My Students section. Now I have two classes that are created here. The one that I use is the Miss Howard's class, and I've created more generic accounts because I've worked primarily with elementary students. I don't want them to be using their actual first and last name. I want to have a lot more control over these sites than I would if students were just doing it all by themselves. That's what worked best for my students, but maybe for yours it's something a little bit different. So I went through and I created 35 student accounts, simply using my last name, their student number, and then the last name of student. And each of my students were assigned one of those accounts to go in and start creating their electronic portfolio. And this is something that we worked on over a number of weeks. In the future, what I would love to do with my students is have them work on it over the course of multiple months. So they're able to add in additional details and additional information that they may not be able to fit in right at the end of the school year. So they can really see the progress and how they've grown. So let me show you an example of what a student has done with this. I've set them all up so that they were password protected as another layer of protection for the students, and the students all knew what that password was. For my students, they had to create 5 Weebly pages, and they could really put whatever they wanted in here. At the very beginning, I went through and I showed them how to add pictures, how to add the text, how to insert things called buttons or links. But what they had to do is create a home page which talked about them. They had to talk about 3 things within English language arts they were proud of or something they wanted to remember. So this student chose to talk about a book, put in a speech that he had written, and then a link to the poem that he had done in class. Same thing in math, 3 things that they wanted to remember, something they were proud of. The student was on a competition for math field day. I showed them how to take pictures with their device of some of the work that they had done, and he chose to add that as a gallery. And then one of the concepts that he enjoyed, he found a video about it to put into the portfolio. So let's take a look at what it would be like for your students to create their own electronic portfolios. I'm going to go back to my student page, and I'm actually going to select a blank site that doesn't have any students on there. All students use the same login, students.weebly.com. And you have to have set up these usernames and passwords ahead of time for them to actually access this. So this student's username is H33 student, and then I simply enter the password. When students first get in, they do have the option to choose a subdomain of Weebly. Basically, it's the website of where it would be found online. I usually have my students skip this for now. And then there is information here, but because I go over this with them, we usually skip all of that section. And the first thing I start at is showing the students how they're able to choose whatever theme that they want to do within their portfolio. Under Change My Theme, students are able to change the layout based off of whatever they want. I encourage students to look more at the personal type one or a blog type one, but they're really able to pick anything that they want to do for their theme. They can even look at the old themes to see if it's something that is exciting for them. Let's say I'm a student and I like this one. First thing I can do is preview it. See a little bit more of the detail. That looks nice. I'm going to choose that for my theme. And then notice how this just changed. I also make sure that my students go in and name their site. One of the things that I make sure that I spend a lot of time on as a teacher is talking about privacy and security online. I always make sure that my students understand the importance of never using their last name. If they're going to use their first name, make sure it's a page that is password protected, because we don't know who's out there. Whoever's looking at their stuff really shouldn't be contacting them at the elementary level, even the middle school, and for a lot at the high school level, unless they've been given this information. So that's something that's really important to make sure that your students understand before you have them do an online portfolio that could be published online. The next thing I had my students do is we added pages. And I added standard pages. The first one was English Language Arts. Obviously, you can do that however you want to. Second one we added was Math. Then I went and added Science and Social Studies. And then we added Miscellaneous. If you notice up here, all of those different pages have been added for them. So if I were to click on one, it would take me, after I get back to the build, I am now on that English Language Arts page. I'm no longer on the home page. I'm on the English Language Arts page. And they're able to drag and drop different elements onto each of those pages. Now with my students, I made sure to go over each of the different basic drag and drop elements, the different media that they're able to add. We talked about things such as adding a title, adding text, adding an image, a button which would allow you to link your work to a different page. This one is great if your students have a lot of things that are saved in their Google Drive. They're able to add that button, so it will take them directly to that document that's saved within their drive so that people can see what they've done, and the students can really look at how much they've improved throughout the year. We looked at being able to add YouTube videos or a scribed document to where it's like a PDF, and it's able to be viewed directly onto this page. Or even attaching a file. I encourage my kids not to do this too much, because then someone would have to download it, and it's not as engaging or exciting as simply just seeing it on the page there. Now, the free Weebly site doesn't have all of the features you would find in the paid version, but it has more than enough for what your students would probably need. And I really allowed my students to go in and make any changes they wanted after they knew the basics of how the site worked. And since we did it as an entire class, one of the things that I encourage students to do is, if they were struggling with remembering how to do something and I wasn't available, go and ask a couple of the other kids to see if they could remember how to do something. And my kids collaborated so much with this. And they were so excited when they found GIFs that they were able to add onto their page, and then they showed their peers. And the sense of accomplishment that they felt from creating something like this was exciting for me to see as a teacher. And as an educator, at the end of the year, we did open house. And it was a great way for the parents to see what the kids had done throughout the year. So what I did back in my Weebly account, let me go back to the sites page. I created simply a home page. And on my home page, that is where I added my own buttons. Each of these buttons would take families to that student's website. And it just gave them the opportunity to see not only what their student did, but what other students had done in class. in a safe way. And I was able to turn this page on and turn this page off when we were done with it, just to make sure that those who weren't supposed to be looking at it didn't have access to it. I highly suggest checking out Weebly for students if you think electronic portfolios is something that your students would really benefit from.